You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and he is Brian Smith. But before we get started with him, I do want to let you know that Brian Smith is here because LinkedIn is the college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On Podcast Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, Brian, we have hit May. Obviously, once we get to the end and everything, I do want to talk to you a little bit about what you saw, like the OT7s and all of that stuff, just random stuff. But Ole Miss got a commitment from Isaiah Hamilton from Houston, cornerback. He started out in the SWAC. To me, he's a good little player. He did some return stuff. What do you think about this young man?
Very dependable as a run defender / making tackles in space. Not necessarily a guy that is going to just take away the field per se, but he also played at Houston. I don't think he had a lot of help defensively. So I think the skill is higher than what his production actually shows. And again, you got the numbers on the screen there. For those of you on YouTube, 50 tackles, 4 picks. It's not like he was a bad player. Like he made plays, but I think he has another level he can get to when he plays around more good players, more pass rush pressure, etc. Houston, again, they're just not a very good program. So I think that they got kind of a late steal. Experienced corners that have productivity in their history, there are not a lot of those guys in the portal.
Yeah, and Ole Miss was not looking for a number one corner. They were looking for somebody to play on the other side of the field from Trey Amos, because Trey Amos is one of those man coverage specialty type guys. He was a Nick Saban. You know, anytime you're recruited to transfer into that defensive backfield at Alabama when Nick Saban's there, you can play.
100%. Now, the other thing is they have an option if Amos misses a game, they at least have somebody that can cover that spot for at least a short while. Obviously, you never want to lose your best guys at any spot, but you got to have depth too. The SEC, LSU, Auburn runs RPO. Georgia even throws for 300 yards a game now. Like, you have to be able to throw out a lot of corners. So I'm sure Ole Miss was happy to land it.
Yeah, and Ole Miss has Chris Graves, who actually started a game a year ago for Ole Miss. I'm expecting him to take a jump. And a couple of JUCOs. Ole Miss got a guy named Cedric Beavers out of Jones County Junior College. That is that typical Mississippi defensive back in the Mississippi JUCOs that would just pop up for a couple of years that you would see at either Mississippi State or Ole Miss, or even someplace like Florida State, he might pop up. But it's one of those situations where I'm expecting him to make an impact a little bit of it as well. But you're right. It is a starting 22 right now. It's not a starting 11.
Yeah, they got to find guys that they can trust. That's what fall camp is for. That's what summer workouts are for when they do the 7-on-7s on the team side of things. Ole Miss will have enough guys, but again, I'll take the experienced players like Isaiah every time and like just kind of looking at his numbers and whatnot. He's a cover corner, but he's going to be playing with better guys. That's going to help him a lot. Yeah, by the way, he had 752 snaps last year. He was counted on a lot. That's a ton of snaps, way too high. Yeah. So he did come off the field for Houston. He'll play 450, 500, I would assume, at Ole Miss. If he plays more than that, things went wrong.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is the player that is in the transfer portal that Ole Miss is in on with the Miami Hurricanes and with the USC Trojans. Those are kind of the other two. They're not talking. They're doing a good job of being quiet at the moment. And that is Tyler Barron, the former Ole Miss transfer portal commit, ended up going to Louisville. Something weird happened there. I don't know exactly the story, what went on in Louisville, but something went on, because if you go on social media, they're still chirping about that. So we'll see exactly how that goes. But I know that you're pretty locked in on what's going on in South Florida. Always good to have you on. Anytime there's somebody that's an Ole Miss Miami situation, it's good to get your opinion on this. What are you hearing on Tyler Barrett?
I'm hearing that it just kind of depends on how the NIL works out and who thinks he's a fit. Like Miami, for instance, it's year 3 for Cristobal. They need to win. They're spending. USC needs, like Ward only knows, they need a better defense. They're spending. So, and Barron had 6 sacks and 10.5 tackles for loss, according to CFB stats last year. 6'5", 260. I mean, there aren't many guys like that in the portal, so didn't work out at Louisville, but I think a lot of teams are willing to take a chance on a guy like this because he has not just proven production, but like those are top of the board kind of things in the SEC. He's one of the better players in the league. So I don't know where he's going, but I know Miami's one of the schools that would really like him.
Yeah, and like I said, USC's their defense over the last couple of years have been Charmin extra soft. So there's going to be that, and all of those schools spend. Everyone, USC's collective, Miami's collective. Heck, was it last year? Like Mario Cristobal on his taxes, like put his taxes in for $22 million. So, dude got paid.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the reason.
I wish I got that kind of money.
Yeah, that's the reason I say it's like they're like, which school would you be worried about if for Lane Kiffin? Which school are you actually? And everybody talks about Florida and all that. It's like, no, I'm the school that I'm worried is Miami.
Yeah. 100%. He loves South Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, and honestly, but yeah, Miami is the one I'm a little bit worried about. So we need Mario Cristobal to win some ball games. So
he should with this roster, to be honest. They should be a lot better this year.
Yeah. Do you think this is a year they can finally beat Florida State?
That game will be a very close game, but I just think Florida State's got a better coaching staff because I'll take Norvell over Cristobal every time.
Yeah. Mr. Clock Management, Mario Cristobal.
You said it, brother.
Yeah. So thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first and listen every day. When we come back, we're going to ask Brian Smith, who is not an Ole Miss person, for his top 5 quarterbacks in Ole Miss football history. We'll get his opinion on that as well. But first, Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA. It makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Gametime's app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. With those views from the seats, the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc., this takes the guesswork out of buying those NBA tickets on Gametime. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Passion, drive, and patience with a formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay has you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that screaming and shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24-hour sports streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, news, opinions, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, Brian, I'm looking forward to this. I do my top 5s every week during the off season, and it's always fun to get a perspective of an outsider. So we're going to do the top 5 quarterbacks in Ole Miss history. We're going to go to from 5 to 1 and see what you say. So we're going to start with number 5.
I'm going Jackson Dart. And the reason I say this, I'm projecting here that he's going to have a huge year. He's pretty good already, but I think he's going to have an elite season. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just trying to help Ole Miss fans along have a good day. But I think he's on that cusp because he's a really good passer, and now he's got a ton of weapons. So it by the end of the season, at least, it'll be Dart. Once you get past that, there's 2 or 3 guys that I'm struggling with, and I kind of change by the moment. At the top is Archie and Eli. You can argue all day, but it's kind of hard to go against those 2. Bo Wallace, I like him a lot. I don't know what you thought of him, and then Chad Kelly at 3. Those are my guys.
So was it Archie 1 or Eli 1?
I'll go Archie because without him, there wouldn't have been an Eli at Ole Miss.
Okay. And then you go Chad Kelly and then Bo Wallace and then Jackson Dart. That's surprisingly fairly close to what a lot of our top 5s have been. Now, you're old enough like me. You've seen some of these guys. One guy that's like a constant honorable mention, there's a couple of them that don't get mentioned, is first of all is Romaro Miller. I think Romaro Miller coming in at 5, you could see something like that happening. I think Romaro Miller was big in you go from Romaro to Eli and you start this kind of quarterback tradition, but it kind of all began with him.
Yeah, he was the guy before. He was a pretty good player. Ole Miss wasn't a great team, but if it wasn't for him, they'd have been in a lot worse shape. He made some big plays. I remember him as a player. If I remember right, he's an in-state kid, isn't he?
Yes, he's from Shannon.
Yeah, there you go. So that probably also helps. Makes it a little easier to play for State U.
And this one right here almost deserves to be in the top 5 just because of this happening. But it's another honorable mention. That's John Forcade, who ended up playing quarterback for the Saints. His back like 1981 was his senior year. But the story with John Forcade is he played in a Louisiana high school all-star game in Tiger Stadium whenever he was a senior in high school. And whenever he ran out of the tunnel, they shipped him down and he was wearing an Ole Miss football helmet. So he played in that game in Tiger Stadium in an Ole Miss football player when he was the number 1 player in Louisiana at that time.
I'm surprised he made it to school alive.
Yeah, he talked about people throwing whiskey bottles at him and stuff like that. And
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. So thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Brian Smith, the Florida football scout. What have you got going on? What is something that you've noticed recently, like in your OT7s and all that?
If there's a kid that you should know about just because Lane recruits the state of California a lot, this is a kid that either he already has an offer or they're recruiting him. Name is Luke Fahey. He's a class of 26 quarterback from Mission Viejo. He was a really good player I knew about, but then he just tore it up at OT7. Again, class of 26, Luke Fahey. That's a kid you should know. And not surprisingly, every kid that I see from Mississippi is just good. They're in good hands as long as they take care of business in their state.
All right. Well, take care, Brian, and we'll see you next week, man.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it.
Take care.